All right, welcome back to part two of our video tutorial series on how to restore this old building. We started by adding a background with a sky and a moon, but there's something I discovered as I looked more closely at this. You'll notice the light is hitting the building from the left-hand side. So it's actually a better idea to have our moon here so that it realistically casts light in this direction. And now the sky also needs to flip. So we'll click on our night sky layer. We'll choose Edit, Transform, and flip horizontal. Notice the word horizon in the word horizontal. That helps you remember which one it is. And there we go. So now we've got a lot of light over in this area shining on our building, and it's going to look more realistic. So first thing I'm going to do is color the moon the color we want it. And that's kind of where we start. We need to figure out what color that's going to be. So let's take our foreground color and click it. And we have a hue slider here where we can choose what hue we want. Let's go kind of like in this blue range here and take the shade that's kind of toward the gray, but it's kind of a nice light blue for our moon. You can pick anything you want. I just slid some things around. And this color here is called our hexadecimal color code. I want to copy that. So it's highlighted. I'll use the keyboard shortcut Command C. It's Control C on a PC. And I'll say, okay. So now that our foreground is this light blue, we can do a lot of things with that. I also have it copied. So for our moon layer, we can add effects. This little FX means effects, and I'm going to use a color overlay. And you'll notice right away, it takes our blue moon. I believe that's the same hexadecimal color code. No, it's not. So I pasted the hexadecimal color code that I chose in there, and I say, okay. And the blend mode is going to be the important part. If it's normal, our moon just looks like a solid blue sphere. If I change it to darken, it does that. I'm going to change it to color. And what that does is it gives our moon that color of blue. I can also choose the opacity if I don't want it to be so strong, but I kind of like it strong like that. So it's got this color blue that we copied the hexadecimal color code for. And now we would like to add an outer glow. So while you're still in the layer styles, you can click the word outer glow and it switches to the properties and it puts a check mark next to it. I can uncheck and recheck that. But as long as I'm clicked on outer glow and it's highlighted, it gives me all the properties to work with. If I want to go back to color overlay or any other property, I got to click on the word of that and then it gives me the properties. So with outer glow, I've got this set to lighten. I could probably choose some other thing. Multiply doesn't work. Color might work. Nope, it doesn't. But luminosity, see how that's a nice glow. But I can set it to lighten, and it does a nice job of getting that color. Let me click on this color and paste that color we chose for our moon, and now it matches better. It's a good idea to keep this color throughout this part of the tutorial. And if we use that one blue that we selected to change a lot of things, that'll all match. So I say okay to this. There's lots of ways to change the look of this outer glow. I can change the size of it. Okay. I can change the opacity of it so it sees through it a little bit more. I can also change the contour of it. I really like changing the contour. You can get some really interesting looks if you just switch the contour. So this is like when you have a halo around the moon. This is a standard glow. That's nice. Kind of like that one. Maybe just a little less opacity. So this kind of has this neat outer halo around the moon, sending a glow outwards. But you can choose any combination of these things that you like for yourself. I'm going to stick with this combination for my outer glow, and I'll say okay. And I just want to pull my moon down a little bit and over so that that glow is equidistant from the sides. All right, so now that we have our moon looking like it does, we need to make everything else match. So one of the ways we can do that for the sky, if I click on the night sky layer and I click on the adjustment layer icon, I can add a solid color. And what it does is it picks up that blue again. That's the blue that we copied. It just has this big old color of sky in there, which is not really what we want. what we want is to change the blending mode. In this situation, when we have an adjustment layer and we change the blending mode, it's going to give us a quick preview of what that's going to look like. And I'm thinking color is what I want to go with again. And what it does is if I turn the visibility off and on, you can see it takes the color that the sky was and it makes it match the color that we had with our moon. So that starts to unify the whole background. Now what we need to do is make sure we take this daytime building and turn it into a nighttime look. And what we can do is we click on the layer. And by the way, let's name this building. It's a good idea to name all of our layers here. Name that layer building, and then I'll take our adjustment layer icon and pick another adjustment layer. What I want to start with is levels. You can do this with levels, you can do this with curves, you can experiment with those two until you get the look you want. I'm going to do levels. Now with levels, you'll notice it gives you a histogram. These are all the dark pixels to all the light pixels. If I take my center slider and drag it to the right, it darkens it. So as you can see, it's starting to already look like we're getting into nighttime. But you'll also notice that it's affecting my entire image. So my moon and my sky and my building are being affected by this slider. To prevent that and to make sure you're only affecting the layer directly beneath it, you're going to click on this little square, and it's called a clipping mask. Okay, so I click that, and you'll notice this little arrow appears to point down to the layer below it. So that means now this levels adjustment layer is only affecting our building layer. So now as you see, as I adjust my building, only the building is changing, and that's what I want. So I want to darken it down so it's starting to look like nighttime. I can also take my black slider all the way to the left and darken that to really darken up some parts of it. I don't really want to mess with the white because it'll just brighten things, as you can see. So before, after, already we're starting to look a little darker, which is nice. But it's still a lot of color in there. So what I'd like to do next is I'd like to add a photo filter. So under the adjustment layers, there's this thing called photo filter. And if you drop these presets down, there's lots of different things we can do here. And basically, nighttime doesn't have a lot of warm colors. It has a lot of cool colors, like on the blue side. And since our moon is that blue color, we want to pick one of these cooling filters. So let's start with this first one. And as you can see, already it's done a nice job of cooling everything. But once again, it's affecting everything. So we can click on that layer, click on this little square for a clipping mask, or we can right click or control click and choose create clipping mask. And does that same thing. So now you'll notice it only affects our building, and it's starting to get that nighttime look on our building, which is starting to look really nice. I think the last thing I want to do is I want to make the street and the building kind of darker in this lower right-hand corner area because the light's shining across. And I want that light from the moon to really make this part of the building that color. So the way I'm going to do that is with a gradient. So I'm going to hit my adjustment layer icon, gradient, and now I have a gradient. If I drop down my gradient and go to basics, there's one choice that uses the foreground color, which is the color of the moon, and the background color, which is just black. So I'm going to choose that. And now I've got this solid thing that goes from black all the way to that light blue we chose for our moon. And I want to rotate that angle here. So I just grab the angle and I try to want to make sure that the black is down here and the blue is up here. So it's shining the moon down until it gets into these shadows. So that's about 37 degrees or so. And I'll say okay to that. Now, of course, it covers the entire thing. But what I'd want to do is I want to change the blending mode to something that's going to make the shadows appear darker and the moon appear lighter. So if I hover these different things, I can see what it's doing. Now, once again, it's affecting our entire image. Okay. Looks like soft light is really doing something good there. Let me choose soft light for now. And once again, I need to put a clipping mask on this so that it only affects the building. All right, let's say before and after on that. Before, after. And you can see that it really does a nice job. Before, after. It does a nice job of casting some light on this building because we're going from a gradient blue to black and to put a shadow down here to really make it look like nighttime. So I think that I really like soft light. You can experiment with lots of different things. If you wanted some details, you could change the opacity of that to bring some details back. But for now, I like how this is looking. Later on, as we start to add people and some other elements, we might want to have some light coming out of this area, and therefore it'll light the street, but we'll deal with that when we come to it. So experiment with adjustment layers that are clipped to your building layer. Experiment with your moon to give it some effects like a color overlay or an outer glow. Experiment with another adjustment layer to give your night sky a color, and try to use the same color throughout, and it'll give it a unified look. I hope that was helpful. We'll see you on tutorial 3.